Hi, my name is Andrew Fisher from Earthborne Games, and today we're super excited to show you our brand new card game, Hubworld Idolon. Idolon is a non-collectible card game of espionage, daring, and deduction for 2 to 4 players. Today I'm joined by Corey DeVore. Corey is one of the designers of the game alongside Michael Boggs, and he's going to show us the rules today.
Thanks, Fisher. So what we have here are 2 Idolon preview decks. You'll be able to get these from teamcovenant.com for the price of shipping. So free for the price of shipping while supplies last. We'll have a link in the description and a link on our website, but that's teamcovenant.com. So these are not final decks. They don't have final graphic design or final card templates, but they're gonna work just fine for learning the game, trying the game out, and for this teach, of course. So let's get into a quick overview of the game. So we play as Seekers, and our goal is to delve into our opponent's territory. And like, for example, Fisher, you'll be delving into my territory, and you'll be coming down through my grid and into my deck, my hand, my discard, looking for agent cards. And each deck has agent cards in them. These are agents that are loyal to us, and we're going to be trying to secure and enlist the aid of our opponent's agents. The first player to get 3 agents secured from their opponent. So for example, if I took this from Fisher, once I have 3 of your agents, I win the game.
And I'm going to win if I secure 3 of yours?
Exactly. So each player's territory is represented by this grid, which is a 3x3 grid. Each column of the grid, or path, leads to what are known as districts. There's 3 different districts. There's the Commons, which is my deck, Council, which is my hand, and Archives, which is a face-down discard for cards that are hidden when discarded. There's also this Exile pile, which we'll get to later, but it's pretty much cards that are discarded face up. When you delve on me to find my agents, you're going to be choosing which path you're going down. I'm going to delve on Commons, Council, etc., and hoping to find agents either in my deck, my hand, or my face-down discard, or along the way somewhere in my grid, whether those are face-down cards or face-up and I'm keeping them defended. Both of us are actually going to be defending ourselves as well. So we're going to have cards in our grid to help keep the other player out, as well as have cards that help us get into the opponent's grid easier. So to play Idolon, each player is going to need 1 Seeker card. These preview decks come with 4 of them. Each Seeker here is from a different faction, and that's okay. You can just choose whichever one you want. This is a 4-colored deck. But yeah, so each faction here that's represented, the blue faction is the Collective. They are this advanced alien republic that just showed up in the galaxy, and they brought with them this portal technology that's essentially phased out the need for hub worlds like Idolon, forcing them to figure out what to do next. The Collective is usually going to be made up of bureaucrats, government officials, law enforcement, people that work for the Collective, which is essentially the new sheriff in town. The orange faction is Omniworks. These are a loose hodgepodge of trade guilds and unions that have been keeping the city running since long before the Collective arrived, from power and water to maintenance, etc. Green represents old Idolon. They're the wealthy families and corporations who built this planet into the bustling hub world that it is today. They view the recent change in status quo as merely a setback or an opportunity. And the purple faction is the Remnants. These are kind of everyone else. A bunch of everyday people, criminals, strays, smugglers, people who don't want what the Collective has to offer, and they merely want to live their lives with their own free will. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Jaco and Ace, because I like Jaco.
And I'm going to choose Abnus because I like his hair.
So these Seekers that we just picked, they provide us with an ability that we can reuse every round. They also give us this collection icon, this little blue one here and this little yellow one here. The blue is a card and the yellow is a shard. And what that is basically I can exhaust my Seeker at any time instead of using its ability to what's called collect with this card. That's an instant speed ability I can do at any time, including on my opponent's turn. The blue one, I'll just draw a card when I do that. And the yellow one, I'll just gain a shard when I do that. So that's how Seekers work. So each player will also need a 36-card deck. Each deck must contain exactly 6 agent cards in them and can contain other card types as well. There's 3 different card types besides agents. First of all, there's moment cards. So moments are one-off cards. You essentially just play them and they get exiled right away and you just fire them off for their ability. Each moment has a shard cost here in the top left corner, which is the cost to play the moment. And then different moments can be played at different times. For example, some of them are going to be an action ability here, like this one has a little arrow. That will spend our turn or our turn to take an action. A reaction ability like this, where it essentially tells you in bold what the timing window of that card is and when you can play it. And then some, which are actually not in this deck, but you'll see later, have an instant icon, which works kind of like collecting, where you can do it basically anytime. Moments are the only card that won't be ever played into your grid. You're just going to play them as one-off abilities. So the next card type you'll see, these are sources. Sources are your engine building cards. These and every other card type besides the moments will be put into your grid. So you're going to be playing these into your grid, and they essentially give you reusable abilities that you can utilize, as well as a collection icon, just like your Seeker, which will help generate more and more econ as you play the game. They also have here on the corner this presence value. This is essentially like the health of the card in a way. When your opponent delves on you and runs into this card, they can just pay that in shards to exile that card. So you want to protect them and make it a little harder to get to them, and that leads to the next card type. So the next card type here are obstacles. Obstacles look a lot like sources, however there's a couple key differences. One is they don't have collection icons on them at all. However, they do have this barrier value here, this red value. That red value is a defensive value. That's going to keep you, Fisher, from getting into my grid. Every time you delve on me, if you run into one of these, you'll have to pay that red value in shards to keep going. Otherwise, you have to quit the delve and you go home. You couldn't get through. They also have a presence, so you can pay that value to exile this, but you'd have to get through the barrier first. Mm-hmm. So the last card type you'll have in your deck are, of course, agents. Now, agents are the most powerful card in your deck. They're also, of course, the win condition of the game. And they essentially are like a source and an obstacle merged into one. They have a collection icon, just like a source. They have a barrier, like an obstacle. And they usually have very powerful abilities. They only have like really one key difference, which is their presence value. If I pay the presence value, rather than exiling them, you'll score them. Because, of course, if I take 3 of your agents, I win the game. Some agents will have this cipher keyword here, which is kind of like an additional cost to the presence, if you see that. Basically, for you to secure this agent from me and you want to pay this shard here, you also have to do the cipher. And if you can't, it just goes back to where you found it. So finally, we're going to take those 36 cards, including our agents, shuffle them up, and place them here in our common slot. And then, of course, our Seeker already is in our Seeker slot.
So do I need a playmat to play the game?
No, you do not need a playmat to play this game. You can simply place your commons here on the table, and then that kind of establishes your back row. And then when you place your Seeker, you just place it 1 card length away, and that kind of establishes your front row. You can see the playmats are basically laid out the exact same way. Next, we'll gain 3 actions. You can see I already have 3 actions here. And then we start the game with 5 shards in our pool and 5 cards in our hand, or what we call the council. Then we'll decide who the first player is. For now, I'll say it's you, Fisher, why not?
Hey.
So this is a round-based game, and we're actually gonna be taking turns doing 1 action at a time. So basically spending our action here, and we're gonna keep doing that until both of us have no actions left, and then we'll refresh, which unexhausts all our cards. So for example, our Seeker, if we collected with them or used their ability, and then we'll gain a shard, draw a card, and flip the first player token to the next player. All right, so let's go over the actions we can take on our turn. First of all, you can gain a shard, or you can draw a card. You can choose either of those as an action. You can also play any moment that has a action ability in its text box. That'll cost an action, so you can only do that on your turn. There's also other cards like sources and seekers sometimes have action abilities, and that is also one of your actions that you can take. So this next action, staging, is very important. That's how you get cards into your grid. And again, you can't stage moments, just agents, obstacles, and sources. So as an example, you can spend your action, say, to stage a card, and you can stage it anywhere in your grid, any of the 9 slots. So I'm going to stage this one here, let's say. You always stage cards face down, and at this time you will not pay the shard cost in the corner. You can kind of think of this as building up your grid secretly with defenses and offensive tools, trying to like not give away what your plans are just yet. So if I did want this card to be face up and I wanted to use its ability, let's say, I can forge it at any time. Forging is another one of those instants, like the lightning bolt moments, and also like collecting on seekers and sources. It doesn't count as an action. So what I can do is at any time, pay this shard cost, even right after I stage it, and that will let me forge it. So I'll pay this 1 shard, and now that card's forged in my grid. I might not want to do that with a defensive card. I might want to wait until you get there. But if it was an offensive card that I wanted to use, I can stage it, forge it, use it right away. So let's say I have a couple cards in my grid. I already have staged a few cards. The next action that we talk about is shifting. And shifting is just as simple as you spend your action to shift a card to any adjacent slot. If there's a card already there, they'll swap places.
Oh, can I go diagonally?
You can't. It has to be orthogonal.
Okay.
So the last and most important action that you can take is the delve action. So delving is, of course, the core of the game. This is how we interact with each other. This is how I get into your districts, find your agents, and win the game. The only rule with delving is you just can't delve as the first action of the game.
All right, so let's say I wanted to delve on you. How would that work?
Let's say you want to delve on me. You're going to first spend your action and say you're going to delve, and then you'll pick one of my 3 paths here in my grid. So you could do commons, council, or archives.
All right, well, for the sake of this demo, let's do commons where you have cards to show the people.
Exactly. Well, let's imagine we didn't have cards to show the people.
Okay.
You would just blast on through, right? Unless I had any tricks I wanted to call out along the way, but you encounter every grid slot, which there's nothing in there, and then get to the district. But for the sake of this example, let's say I have a couple cards here. So before and between each grid slot, there's an instant window where you can collect with your cards and forge cards, for example. And I am the defender, so I get to go first on all the instant windows. That means that I could forge a defensive card. So for example, let's say you've just now chose commons. You're now approaching my commons. I have an opportunity here to forge cards if I'd like. So I'm going to forge this because I have exactly enough money. I'll spend my 3 shards to forge Canal Network. So now that this card is forged and face up, you are going to be forced to confront this card. So you can't just pass right through. I'm now forcing you to hit this. You also have an opportunity to do an instant before you hit it if you'd like.
No, that's okay. Let's get in there.
All right. So first off, when you confront a card, you look for any confront abilities, and these are only on obstacles. You'll see this little arrow icon here. That basically tells me what something I can do to you because you've confronted this card. So I'm going to shift an unforged card and you engage player's grid, your grid.
All right, my only unforged card is back here. Where do you want it to go?
Send it to council.
All right.
All right. So then the next thing, we ignore anything that's not a confront ability. The next thing would be this barrier value. So now you have to pay 2 shards if you want to keep going.
And otherwise the delve is over?
It just immediately ends the delve.
All right, have your 2 shards.
All right. So now you do have an opportunity before you finish engaging with this card to pay this 5 presents if you'd like, to exile this card, blowing it up.
Yeah, that's too rich for my blood. We're leaving that there.
All right. All right, so you continue on. And now we get to the next instant window, and I could choose to forge this if I'd like. However, I have no money, so I'm not going to forge it. So if there's a face down card, you basically treat that slot like it's blank and you can just continue through. However, you also have the option to discover this card if you'd like.
So why would I want to do that instead of just passing it by?
So it could be that this is an agent that I just don't have the money to forge. It could be a source that I want to use against you, or even an obstacle that's really expensive and you could blow it up before the barrier's on.
Okay, so I can pay the presence and destroy it even when I discover it?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's discover it then.
All right, so you discover this card, Barbican Gate. Now, the thing about Discover is that some cards have discover abilities. This little eyeball here. That's an ability that triggers when you discover a card, either in the grid or some of them will trigger if they're found in a district, etc. So in the case of this one, I just get to gain a shard. But the confront ability, the barrier is not on. So you basically just look for the discover effect, and then you can pay the presence if you'd like.
All right, well, that presence is also pretty high, so probably shouldn't have discovered it in this case, so put it face down, we're continuing on.
All right, so you continue on, and now you're going to get to my district. And so you've encountered every grid slot. Now you're going to what's called breach my commons, which is the big important step where you might find agents. Now to do that, you actually need to give me what's called a heat. Now, every time you get to one of my districts to breach it, right after instants happen, you have an opportunity to generate 1 heat on me, once per delve. And the reason you want to do this is because that's how many cards you're going to look at. That's how many cards you're going to discover from whatever district you get to. So the first one is always a shard. You just spend a shard and I gain a heat. And then if I had one already, it would be 2, etc. Just at a climbing cost.
All right, so it costs more and more each time.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll spend 1 shard to give you your first heat of the game.
All right. That's
does that go away at any point?
no. So heat stays on unless you have an ability that gets rid of it. So there are some cards in these decks that will get rid of heat.
Okay, cool.
But otherwise, now you can look at 1 card every time you hit any of my districts. So how does that work on commons? So in the case of commons, you discover cards from the top equal to the number of heat, 1 at a time. Kind of discovering each card, seeing which ones you want to get rid of, etc., and hopefully scoring an agent. If it was my council, you would actually grab them randomly from my hand 1 at a time. And if it was archives, it's also random like council. However, cards are automatically exiled when you discover them out of archives, and agents are automatically secured for free unless they have a cipher you can't fulfill for some reason. So now you get to discover 1 card off the top of my commons, and that is this Disagreeable Inspector card.
Not an agent, but I do have the money to pay that presence value. I'll do it. I'll pay 2 to exile that card.
It's probably a good idea because it's a pretty good card. It is important to note that we both get to see the card that you discover, and in multiplayer, it would just be the 2 of us.
And you said earlier that's like any other discovery icons fire even if I see it in commons?
Yes, so if you were to top deck this Barbican Gate, for example,
you would get another shard or whatever.
Okay,
shard, all right,
yeah.
That's good to know.
But yeah, so now you've completed your breach, you've completed your delve, and now it's my turn to take an action. And now we'll continue just going back and forth, taking actions from round to round, building up our boards, staging cards, and trying to find agents in each other's grids and districts until one of us has 3 agents.
Awesome. And we did mention earlier that this is multiplayer, so is there anything different if we add a 3rd or 4th player?
Yeah, so really the only key difference between multiplayer and 2-player is that each agent that you secure must come from a different player if able. So that especially gets unique at 4-player, where I basically have to take an agent from each other player, which is very fun.
Cool. Well, thank you, Corey.
Of course.
So if you want to try out Idolon for yourselves, you can go to teamcovenant.com and get one of these demo decks while supplies last, just for the price of shipping. You can also follow us on earthbornegames.com or on GameFound for our upcoming campaign. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you on the streets of Idolon. Bye.
Bye.